This is an amazing podcast from an amazing podcast company in co-production with Wessler Media.
So I just want all of this on the record because, quite honestly, we've been given the runaround in this case by these defendants. Now, obviously, whether her son was just pulling a scam, because that's what he does, or whatever happened, son came in and acted like he never ever spoke to his attorney about pleading guilty, comes in, was as obstinate as he ever is, and was saying, I'm not pleading to anything. We sat down with her son when he confessed, and he only confessed after he has his deal in place, which you know is highly unusual. When I say we've been given the runaround, we've been given the runaround.
Welcome to episode 6 of Operation Stolen Base, the true story behind one of the largest sports memorabilia fraud schemes of all time. My name is Johnny Ciccatelli. It's the end of March in 2015, and Cliff Panezich, a so-called master forger, has a problem. Assistant Mahoning County Prosecutor Marty Desmond has overwhelming evidence that puts Cliff at the top of a multi-million-dollar fraud operation. With his back against the wall, Cliff agrees to give a proffer statement, which is an admission of guilt and a promise to cooperate in exchange for a 3 to 7 year prison sentence. But when Cliff receives the typed document, the deal says 5 to 7 years. Chapter 6: The Curveball. So why does the document say 5 to 7 years and not 3 to 7 as they agreed to? The answer depends on who you ask, Cliff or Assistant Prosecutor Marty Desmond. But everyone would agree, this is the moment when the shit hits the fan. In this episode, we'll hear the prosecution's side of the story.
And so he had agreed to cooperate with us. And we send a letter, formal offer letter. We had said, okay, Cliff, you cooperate. We'll recommend something in the range of 3 to 7 years. In the letter, we had put 5 to 7.
When Marty sends over the offer sheet, it's now been changed to a 5 to 7 year plea deal, which the difference in that, obviously, aside from the fact that it changed from 3 to 5, is that in Ohio at the time, a 5-year sentence to become eligible for a judicial release, you had to serve at least 5 years. So to me, in my mind, it just changed from the potential of doing 6 months to not the potential of, but having to do 5 years.
Attorney reached out to me. I said, listen, we do hundreds of these a year. That's a mistake, probably because of my handwriting. I said, we'll correct it. We admitted, hey, that was a mistake. Sent it back to his lawyer saying 3 to 7, like we said. Upon receiving it, Cliff went ballistic on his attorney, and I think Cliff was just looking for a way out. He said, no, they weren't honest with me. I'm done. And accused us of, trying to, we were underhanded, we were lying. He has a huge falling out with that lawyer, and he basically becomes, non-communicative with us. Okay, won't return our phone calls, won't come back to town. He's living in Vegas. Just giving us the finger. I'm not cooperating with you guys. So we said, okay.
Here's Detective Brian McGivern.
He got real upset and he said, you know what? I don't trust you guys. I'm not coming back. You want me, come get me.
Did that just kind of piss you guys off?
No, I mean, it's his right. If that's what he wants to do, he doesn't want to cooperate with law enforcement. That's fine. That's his right. We're going to move forward with what we have to do.
So instead of now using Cliff and working our way down in this way and seeing if there's anyone above him, we decided, okay, well, we'll do what we do, and otherwise we'll just work our way up then. And so that's what happens. We started then, bringing in each of these individuals individually, working out deals with them.
Working his way up means Marty Desmond starts at the bottom of the totem pole. Throughout the summer and fall of 2015, Marty gets everyone beneath Cliff to rat him out, in exchange for individual deals. One by one, they all play ball.
Jason Lindsay, Joe Molachek, Marino, Sorenko, and Sean Pilo. Those guys all pled guilty to what's called a bill of information, where the defendant agrees to waive the case going to the grand jury and just agrees that, hey, you can just file this bill of information and it sets forth the charges. So each of those guys pled guilty to a bill of information for one count of engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity. And each one of them, as part of those pleas, all agreed to cooperate. The only people that were going to be indicted were Cliff and CJ, because they were kind of the main forgers, if you will. Around this time, we had received information that someone working on Cliff's behalf, I don't want to say his lawyer, but someone working on Cliff's behalf was reaching out to these other individuals, trying to get them to withdraw their guilty pleas, and that Cliff's lawyer would represent them. And that if they all stuck together, the case would crumble. And one of those people who got duped into that was Jason Moore. That's when Jason Moore comes along and says, I'm not cooperating. So at that point, we realized, listen, Cliff needs to be brought in. He can't be out in the streets doing this. So he was ultimately arrested in Nevada. He had to be extradited, which means he was brought home on Con Air.
It was my 30th birthday. I just turned 30. It was Christmas Day, roughly midnight. My grandmother had passed away in the first week of November of 2015. So really a difficult time for the family. And obviously I had this prosecution hanging over my head.
It's an interesting moment, right? It's your birthday, it's Christmas. Did you get a cake? Did you get presents? Did your mom get you anything?
Dude, I can't even, it's a blur. I remember we had dinner. That's all I remember. And then fast forward to that night, obviously, Henderson Police Department shows up at my parents' house where I'm living now to arrest me and my mother.
Here's Cliff's mother, Rose Panezich.
It was midnight and somebody's at the door, the dog's barking. Cliff was living back with us at that time because he couldn't pay his rent. The dog's barking, so I go look out and I said, Cliff, there's cops out here. They gave us 10 minutes and then took us in.
Cliff finds himself back in Youngstown yet again, and back in the game, where Prosecutor Desmond is pitching a shutout.
So what happens then is Cliff hires a new lawyer who we sent the information to half dozen times, and he kept saying, well, I didn't need this, or I need this now. And so it was just a constant kind of stall by Cliff all throughout 2016. I got the impression they were not acting in good faith, because Tony Sano, Brian McGivern were willing to sit down with anyone and literally walk them through the entire case if necessary. They wouldn't take us up on the offer. And so we had such a problem with him as the case progressed that it was to the point where really I had no trust of him.
Trust isn't something that comes easy for Marty Desmond. As with many people who go into law enforcement, Marty's got a particular worldview. There's good guys and bad guys.
So I grew up in Youngstown, north side of Youngstown, pretty rough area of town. Just a lot of gang activity, a lot of drug activity, a lot of public corruption in Youngstown. I'm a victim of violent crime myself. My mother was being stalked by a serial rapist, and he broke into our home. Thank God my mom wasn't home, but I was. He held me at gunpoint for about 45 minutes, walked me around the house, telling me how he's going to, splatter my brains on my mother's kitchen floor, and he was going to come back and rape and kill her. Eventually, we went through the entire house, and I convinced him that I would drive him to the bank and take him to the ATM and get him money. And as we got to the front door, he turned his back on me for the first time, and I was able to kind of, hit him in the back and force him out of the house. And as I was shutting the door, he turned and he started shooting at me, and thank God he missed. I was able to run back inside, call the police. When it came time for that case to be prosecuted, the prosecutor had cut a deal that I just did not agree with. I thought it was very lenient. And I just remember thinking there should have been justice delivered for these victims. Having those experiences, shapes you. And so, you kind of become streetwise And I think that really aided me as a prosecutor, because I was able to kind of decipher, who the really bad people were versus maybe somebody who just, screwed up and still needed to be punished, still needed to be held accountable, but wasn't the truly evil person that we needed to strike out against. I mean, I've had people who have come in and from the get-go have said, I did this, I made a mistake, I need to be better. And, you can see who the, am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
Okay, you can see who the bullshitters are. Like most of the defendants that I prosecute, I try to delve into who they are as a person. In this case, I knew that he had played baseball here for a local high school. I actually knew two of his coaches, and I reached out to them and said, hey, what's this guy like? The impression they gave was it was a guy who was very selfish, very egotistical. They recounted a story where they had been playing a game. They had lost, and the managers, the coaches are talking to the team in the dugout, and his mom comes over and says something along the lines of, don't worry, Cliff, you played good. It was your teammates that let you down. And he's yelling this as the team is sitting in the dugout, and he kind of like nodded in agreement. And you kind of get a glimpse of who he is as well as the type of person his mother is.
Looking at his social media account through the investigation, we would find him living the life in Las Vegas. He would go to clubs. He'd be on the dance floor with, hundreds of people partying it up. At one time, he had a fistful of money and he threw it out. He made it rain on the dance floor like he was important or something. And then he, typed into his social media account like, these poor bastards are gonna pick up my money.
He posted something on one of his social media accounts where he's sitting at a 4-star restaurant or 5-star restaurant, whatever it was. He's got all this food sitting in front of him. He's got crab legs and he's got a lobster over here and steak and this and that. And under it, he has a quote. He says something like, I didn't know what to order off the menu, so I ordered it all. You have these people who are so selfish and self-centered that they're just willing to do whatever they can to take someone else's money to put into their own pocket.
When we first broke this case open through eBay, PayPal, and I got all this data back, I thought to myself, why doesn't this guy just do a legit business? He's obviously very business-minded. He'd probably be a millionaire if he would put his mind to it.
Why do you think he didn't?
It was easy money for him.
His mother, you've met her. What kind of person is she?
You can see where Cliff gets his behavior.
Rose was a convicted felon when we identified her. She was convicted of identity fraud.
Separate from this?
Yeah, this had happened years before. She was abrasive. She was standoffish. She was difficult. She was not remorseful. She just checked all of those boxes of someone that was just not willing to accept responsibility. In 2016, Rose agreed to come into town. She's going to plead guilty, to a bill of information. She's going to cooperate. She's going to meet with Brian. She's going to meet with Tony. She's going to give a statement. She's going to testify at trial if necessary. Everything that comes with cooperation.
Again, we're negotiating a plea deal. My mom gets probation on the case, so now her situation is settled. I potentially come to another agreement. We're back down to the 3 to 7 years. Marty finally kind of agrees to the 3 to 7. I come back to Ohio for a plea hearing to plead guilty. So we're literally in Judge Maureen Sweeney's courtroom. I'm ready to plead to this 3 to 7 year plea deal. Marty's there. I'm there with my counsel, Attorney Squire. I'm ready to plead to this 3 to 7 year plea deal. Marty goes in front of the judge and puts on the record that he's offering a 5 to 7 year plea deal. Again, I don't plead guilty.
During this time when we're negotiating the plea, he kept holding on to this, 3 to 7, 3 to 7, 3 to 7. And we kept saying, listen to me, 3 to 7 was with you cooperating. You never cooperated. Why would we give you the beneficial sentencing recommendation when you didn't uphold your end of the agreement? I mean, this is basic contract law, contract theories. You do X, you get Y. You didn't do X, you don't get Y. And so you didn't cooperate, you don't get the 3 to 7 recommendation.
If Cliff loses the 3 to 7 year sentencing recommendation as part of his plea deal, there goes his whole plan of serving 6 months before an early release. First-time offender or not, in Ohio, if he pleads guilty and is sentenced to at least 4 years, he has to serve the 4 years. But now, with no deal at all, here comes the indictment.
So I got charged with 1 count, first-degree felony engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity, a second-degree felony identity theft, second-degree felony telecommunications fraud, second-degree felony aggravated theft, 3 counts of forgery, felony of the 3rd degree, and an F3, felony of the 3rd degree count of money laundering. I wound up in a situation where I was facing 47 years.
To make matters worse, Cliff's mom is caught in the middle.
She was supposed to meet with the FBI and the Canfield police, Tony and Brian, and go through everything, give a statement. When it comes time for her to meet with them, she says, "I'm not cooperating."
She started backpedaling, and I said, "Rose, you don't want to do this. You've already admitted what you're doing here. I'm not trying to get you in any more trouble. You just have to give us the facts." And she just kept backpedaling, and I said, "Okay, if that's the road you want to go down, that's fine." And I ended up calling Marty, and I said, "She's not cooperating anymore."
Her attorney tells us she's going to say that he didn't do anything wrong. So we go back to the judge.
First of all, who was the judge?
Maureen Sweeney.
And what kind of judge is she?
She's strict. She's strict. You go in there. She doesn't like a lot of gamesmanship. So the judge in the case, we filed an immediate motion or a probation violation because she was on community control. So we filed that she violated. The judge, who is not one to mess with, revokes her bond and puts her in a county jail.
Hello, Laura.
Oh, there you are. Hello. Yes.
Oh my God, I was arrested. I'm in county jail.
Cliff just called 2 minutes ago just to see if I knew anything about you.
Okay, well, you could call him back. All I was told is, this is the words I was told, the judge ordered my arrest for probation violation. The paper that I have from the court, it says that if I violate parole, she could put me in for the 7 years.
Because she wasn't cooperating, she was going to do large amount of time in prison because she was already a convicted felon. And now she's looking at these charges.
You guys heard from my mom?
Well, I haven't heard from her, but Tony Sano from the FBI called me. So they did have a meeting today.
Special Agent Anthony Sano, Youngstown FBI. Date today is October 18, 2016. The time is approximately 12:15 p.m. Here with Rose Panezich, her attorney David Beatrice, Detective Brian McGivern, Assistant Prosecutors Martin Desmond, and Ralph Rivera.
And just so we have it, what's brought us here today is Ms. Panezich pled guilty to 1 count of engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity. She was placed on probation. The condition of that plea and probation is that she fully cooperates with law enforcement. We brought her out here to give a statement, which we felt was less than truthful. We advised her PO, who advised the court. That resulted in a probation violation being filed against her. She was arrested. Attorney Beatrice spoke to her, allowed us to talk to her, and she agreed that she would come in and now give a truthful statement.
This is a letter from Cliff to his mother. I'm reading this on one of the provisos that this helps the prosecution with their case and that my client gets credit for this. Mom, from what has been explained to me, they are giving you an opportunity to give a proffer on Tuesday. There's just a few things that I needed you to know beforehand. The first is this. I need you to tell them exactly what they want to hear. Be 100% truthful. That is, if it ensures your parole violation will be dropped, make sure that will be in the end result, your violation being dropped. If you do not cooperate, you will not be protecting me. You will be doing the exact opposite, because I will take a deal to get you out of your violation if I have to. Now, knowing all this, I need you to tell them everything. Regarding the autographs, you did witness me signing autographs. However, there's fewer than they think. You just showed up and items were laid out with shipping labels to be shipped. First time you saw was probably late 2010. You can tell them that you noticed the amount of trips I was taking significantly reduced. They'll ask you about the COAs again. Tell them the truth. The items were laid out with matching COAs and shipping labels. Sometimes you put matching hologram stickers on both. Sometimes it was already done. That's all I could think of to remind you about. But just tell the truth. Make sure it's all the truth. All right? Go ahead.
Rose.
Yes.
Exactly. What is your involvement prior to moving to Las Vegas? Let me word it better.
Okay.
You knew Cliff had a legitimate business going and getting autographs
Yes.
while you lived in Austintown.
Yes.
And he sold those on eBay.
Yes.
You then were aware that he started forging signatures
At some point, yes.
while you lived in Austintown.
Yes.
That is accurate, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you help him by going to the post office and shipping these forged items that Cliff signed?
Yes.
Okay.
While you lived in Austintown.
Correct.
Okay.
When you discovered this, did you approach him as a mother?
No.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know.
Man,
Guess I
just so
should've.
you know, one thing your attorneys explained to you is so very true. Look, you've already pled.
I know.
And you've been sentenced. We're not going to pile on charges.
They're not going to give you any federal charges.
I know that. That's why I'm trying to be honest. I don't know why I didn't approach him. Maybe I didn't want to hear the truth from him as a mother.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he would ever want him to say that to me, though. I mean, when you admit to your mother.
Were you aware that most of his income was from this fraudulent?
Oh, yes. But not because I could ever remember him telling me that.
Okay.
You just figured it out?
I think. I mean, I don't know. As a parent, don't you sometimes know?
Yeah, you do.
I don't know. Do you have kids? I don't know.
Did you ever witness Cliff signing an autograph?
I probably did, but I, honest to God, do not remember. I've tried to think of every time I was in a room with him. I tried really not to pay attention to what he was doing.
But Rose, here's
I don't remember him picking up something and
let
signing
me
here.
tell you something. We're actually pretty compassionate people. We're trying to be on your side.
I know.
And that's the one thing we're struggling with because we have 8 other individuals, right, that say, look, I was in the room and witnessed Rose, witnessed Cliff signing autographs.
Okay.
So it's hard for us
I know.
to balance.
I wish I could just say I did see it because
If you didn't see it, we don't want you to lie. But
I'm trying not to lie. I'm just,
you saw what was seized. You saw the sportsman. It wasn't like there was 100 items or 200 items. There were thousands of items.
We're nice people. We're not mean people.
I didn't say
And
you were.
we've tried to work with you and your son so this wouldn't happen. It's like you don't want to take responsibility.
With his mother still on the hook for a probation violation and facing years behind bars, Cliff has run out of outs. So he comes back to the negotiating table.
So we finally, hashed out this agreement, and we had been to court and we were ready to do the plea. I had written up the plea agreement. It was ready. I had given it to his lawyer. Because Cliff was being so immature about the whole thing, we were sitting in court waiting. His lawyer kept trying to nickel and dime us over things. Eventually, the judge had said, "That's it. I told you guys, your time to do this was 1:30. It was now like 4 o'clock." We go back the next day, and his lawyer's still trying to nickel and dime. Well, how about doing it? No, this is the agreement. This is the agreement. Well, it became apparent to me as I'm sitting in court that it's just typical Cliff. He's not going to do it. He's not going to accept responsibility. He's going to make us do something additional.
Cliff, I know he plays sports golf. It seems to me like he's a pretty bad loser. Is that fair enough to say?
Probably just because of
being
being in
sport,
sports all those years.
And there's one thing about being competitive, and I don't like to lose either, and no one likes to lose, but there's a difference between losing with grace and professionalism. And there's another being a poor sport. The guy who strikes out and throws his helmet and breaks a bat, and yells at his teammates and kicks the dog when he gets home. That's a poor sport. We could probably agree. Cliff seems like he's a poor sport.
So we're in the courtroom because we were holding our pretrial in there without the judge, and the media was sitting over in in the jury box. And after a while of just hearing his lawyer and him just chirping, I turned to my co-counsel. I said, I'm done. Let's go. So I grabbed my jacket. I put it on. I grabbed my bag and I'm walking out. And his lawyer says, hey, boy, where are you going? I said something along the lines of, screw you. If he's not going to take the deal, then we're just going to go to trial. Next thing I know, I'm getting called back. We're getting called back into the judge's chambers, and the judge is saying, what is going on here? Looking at the defense attorney, you agreed to plea. You have been giving us, basically an ass ache this entire time. She didn't say ass ache, though. What's happening? And he said, well, my client's going to plead. And he pled guilty. But this was like, the typical thing with Cliff. It was always, everything was a fight. I think he had pushed it as far as he could go. He had delayed it as far as he could go. And now it was time, like I said, time to put up or shut up. Okay, it's time to either plea or we're going to trial, Cliff. And I think that he recognized that the likelihood of conviction at trial was almost all but secured, and that he would have been convicted and that he would have gotten a much stiffer sentence following trial. Now, this case gone to trial and he was convicted, I can tell you, I mean, he'd probably been looking at 10 plus years. He knew that, his lawyer knew that. He knew he was going to get convicted. And so when it finally came time, put up or shut up, he shut up and he pled.
He was the last one that pled guilty. And I was in court. And when they finally said, how do you plead to these charges? He said, guilty. I thought to myself, finally, it's over. Thank God.
This call may be recorded or monitored. I have a collect call from
Cliff,
an inmate at Mahoning County Justice Center.
Hello?
Oh, hey, what's up?
Marty Desmond is intentionally unavailable this afternoon for my bail hearing. This prosecutor and judge just fucking do whatever they want.
This has got to get resolved. I mean, to ruin your whole life for somebody's wild imagination. I was doing some looking up on him and reading his FBI case stuff.
Oh, Marty?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a real...
Boy, what damaged goods he is.
Yeah. I know, I mean, it sure feels like he has a vendetta or an agenda these guys don't care. All they care about is, like, furthering their career. That's all it is. And this is a big news story to them.
Just lying and cheating and doing every scummy thing they can and mistreating people. And they can recall this call. I don't care if they do, because they are scum.
On the next episode of Operation Stolen Base.
Well, now that you're a mind reader and you know that I'm going to do something, you could have me arrested for it.
The Rico characterization, I thought, was a stretch. People knew that Cliff had this talent, and so you had just various people coming to him.
They raised his bond, his bail.
How much?
$500,000.
I was sitting in a cell on a dude that's in here for an F1 aggravated murder, facing life, and his bail was $500,000. Like, no shit.
They coerce you into doing these things. They make you feel good about making a decision, even though you have no clue what you just signed.
If my mom doesn't get out, they're going to lose the house. Between a rock and a hard place. That's Youngstown.
This episode of Operation Stolen Base was written by me, Johnny Ciccatelli. Story editing, mixing, and sound design by Kevin Skubak. Produced by Vince Tornero and myself. Our theme song is Chasin' by the Vindies.
That was an amazing podcast from an amazing podcast company in co-production with Wessler Media. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a review. It goes a long way in helping more people find the show.